Hello, everyone. My name is Tooways Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show there's more than one way to be successful other than climbing the corporate ladder. A reminder that the show will be available on YouTube and podcast by latest tomorrow morning. So if you're joining us live, please drop a 1 in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a 2 in the comments if you're watching the recording. So I know the show is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than climbing the corporate ladder. But today we've got somebody who's climbed the corporate ladder. So my guest for today is Zimkita Mabindla, chartered accountant, experienced audit partner and director, who's currently on sabbatical. Zimkita, thanks for joining me.
Yes, thanks so much for inviting me always.
I've got lots of questions for you, and we might not get to all of them, but let's see how it goes, right?
Okay.
So we can take it easy. But to jump straight into questions, first tell us your story. Where are you from outside of work? Who is Zimkita Mabindla?
So always, I grew up in Butterworth, in the former Transkei. So for the young people who are joining me, there was a time when in South Africa we had what was called the TBVC states. So Transkei was a mini country within South Africa. It was during the dark days of apartheid, obviously. So I grew up in the Butterworth, and we grew up in a township that was not as, it was more poverty-stricken than middle class. But we were middle class in that environment, right? And our parents sent us to a village boarding school. And because we are in the villages, we had nothing to do much. I know for a fact that, I don't remember much about my life then, but I know for a fact that my older sister and my older brother used to read a lot, right? And therefore, they must have influenced me to like reading and books. And I know for a fact that when I was about 7 years old, I could read proper English, right? So my sister Nandi, if she's on this call, she will vouch for me that when I was 8 years old, I could recite 5 paragraphs of The Inch Cape Rock by Robert Southey, which is a very difficult English poem, right? So I think she was a great influence when it comes to me reading. And then I would read the books a lot. And I would try and look at the lifestyle of the people that were as described in the books compared to my lifestyle. So there was a big a disconnect because we were in the villages, in the townships, under apartheid. But the one thing that was common between that world and my world was money, right? So they called it a number of things. Lira is a US dollar, is a British pound. But I did notice that it is money, right? And then that's when I went to my dad when I was about 11 years old, and then I asked him, what subjects would I have to study to understand money? Right? And then that's when he said, you would have to understand accounting. You have to actually study accounting. And he also gave me a warning, though, to say, if you do study accounting, you must know that you're going to be on your own. You know what I'm saying? Your mom and I are already struggling with maths, you know? So I was determined to learn. So I moved to a new school. I registered for accounting. And for me, being a Black girl child growing up in the villages and the townships, learning accounting opened up a world of knowledge for me because I could actually apply the transactions that I learned about at school to my real life. So that is my biggest relationship to accounting. It explained the world around me. So I would help my mom a lot with her admin. So if we have to go and pay, for example, her sales house account. Okay, sales house was part of Edcon, but it was a black focused brand. So we'll go to sales house and I'm standing in the line helping my mom pay for her accounts, and I'm doing all of these transactions in my head, right? So it's a sales house account. I'm like, okay, what is sales house doing, right? They're debiting a bank. What are they crediting? They're crediting interest received, and then they're crediting data, PB Mabindla. And what is my mom?
You took it to the next level.
Yes. So if my mom was a business, what would she be doing? She'll be debiting creditors, right? A sales house, and then she'll be crediting. So she'll be debiting creditors. She'll be debiting interest paid, and then she'll be crediting bank. You know. So for me, it was so much fun being able to relate what I'm learning at school, because I was studying under Bantu education. Most of the times we did not have equipment. So when they taught you science, you were like, they would take a chalk and write on the board, and you're like, seriously, this doesn't make sense. But accounting made sense because it explained the world around me. And then in doing this, I actually one day was at a bank. I was queuing. My mom had to go somewhere, and I had to queue for her at the bank. And I was looking at the transactions on this little slip, ATM slip. I'm like, but why are they saying the balance is credit when it's to my mom, right? And then through trying to do the transactions, and obviously I think they were wrong, but I realized that the bank itself has a bank account. And that was huge, you know what I'm saying? Because standing there in Butterworth, a small town, we had 4 banks already. You see what I'm saying? So then I said, there's a bigger system out there. So I went back to my dad, and then I asked him if I had to understand transactions at that level. You know what I'm saying? And I explained. My dad was one of those people who would look at me and like, I don't understand why you're asking the questions, but he'd go find the answers. And then he said he knows that there's a guy called Wiseman Kutlu who is a chartered accountant, right?
You knew all of the important people at that time, right?
Yeah, he said that I know that there's this guy, so you would have to be a chartered accountant. And that's how I started my journey to being a chartered accountant at the age of 12. I didn't know how I was going to get there because we did not have career guidance or anything like that. But I knew that eventually I'm going to be part of that world. You know, the world of people who understand.
I want to stop you there quickly.
Yes.
When people read your bio and say audit partner director, that sounds very serious. So tell us the non-work. What do you do on the weekend? Or do you play sport? Are you a golfer? What tell us a little bit about that.
I am not that sophisticated always. I am a mother. I love spending time with my child. I'm fascinated with my daughter. She's 15. She's turning 15 in 2 weeks' time. I spend a lot of time with my daughter. We have traveled a lot and extensively around the country, and we've done 2 trips abroad. I spend a lot of time with my family. I've got a wonderful family. I am number 3 out of 6 children. I've got amazing brothers and sisters, and I've got obviously amazing nephews and nieces. So I actually spend a lot of time with the people that I love. I do go to gym, and I try to go to gym and exercise, and I do a lot of reading, a lot of writing, right? But this year, especially, I've been talking to a lot of young CAs as a hobby. So, and
that's a nice hobby to have.
Yes, it is. It because I've been on career break, which I have been talking to a lot of young CAs and a lot of guys who are still at varsity and who've been asking me questions, and I've had time to spend time with them, and that has been very critical to my joy and happiness in 2020.
Following up on that, like you said, you've just been on a career break.
Yes.
You say you're on sabbatical.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? Tell us a little bit about that, because sabbatical can mean a lot of things to many people. And I know you're not sitting doing nothing. So tell us, what does being on sabbatical mean to you?
Okay, so I'm not sitting doing nothing. The reason why I'm on sabbatical, and I've taken other sabbaticals before, so if people check my profile, I normally take sabbaticals to parent my daughter, right? So anything, if I have to, I feel that there's a need for me to hands-on parent my child. Because I always say that the biggest contribution we can make in this world is to unleash human beings, you know what, that are going to be confident and not cause havoc when they get into the world. So my daughter is battling with 2 serious medical conditions, and for 3 years I tried balancing being at work and trying to do, and I said, it's not working. I need to understand exactly what's going on. We've got a diagnosis now, so I might be going back to work very soon, but I've used the time to write. Right? If you see that last year, I have not written as much as I would have wanted, but I think I have managed to put out a lot of content out there, and to spend time as well and talk to the young CAs, because I believe that young CAs are the future, right? And I believe that they've been hit the most with what has been happening, and they're not responsible for it. And you can quote me on that. I don't think that young people, the millennials and Gen Z, were responsible for the kind of negative publicity that we're getting. And I do believe that they've been hit quite a lot, because the workloads have increased. All of these things have happened, and I don't think they have context of why, and why do they have to work these long hours. And therefore, I've actually been able to provide a lot of support to young people, both from EY and other firms, just to explain to them what has happened and how they can navigate it.
Because that's interesting. Also, from a sabbatical point, I always think, I'd love to go on sabbatical. Then I look at my budget and I think, okay, no, that's not going to work right now. Let's figure out another plan.
It is too costly always, and I've been very transparent about it, because I do want young women, especially, to be comfortable taking time off to take care of their kids. I've written an article about the leadership, the sustainability of women's leadership when it comes to raising children, right? I've got this article, and I'm asking the question, why is it that after everything that we do, we still have to convince people that our leadership leads to sustainable outcomes? It's a topic for another day, but I do want young women to see that it is critical for them, and they should not be guilted into not taking time off. They should take time off to take care of their children. It is costly. It's cost me a lot of money, because I've taken breaks before to try and just take a breather and take care of my child. But it is very costly. Therefore, you do have to look at your budget, and you do have to save for it.
No, I get it. And just a reminder for everybody watching, if you have got any questions for Zimkita, please send us the questions now. We'll deal with the questions towards the end. Zimkita, I'm told that you've got a very interesting story in your CA journey in terms of studying and then getting to qualify. Tell us that story.
So I always say to people, I paid for my CA brand. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because I paid with my own rands and cents, right?
Skin in the game.
So I actually from the time, so I actually, after matric, I went to Natal Technikon, because my dad could not afford the universities I wanted to go to. So he wanted me to go to the University of Forte. I wanted to go to the University of KwaZulu-Natal, University of Natal. So he couldn't afford that. So I actually went to Natal Technikon. I did a 3-year diploma. And then in my second year, 1995, I'm so old. Yeah, 1995, yes. So my older sister, Nandi, invited me to come to Cape Town, because she was already working. And she also helped me find a job in Cape Town, a part-time job for December. And when I came back to Natal, I actually was determined to finance my own studies. Always there's when fees must fall happened, and people were asking me what my views are on fees must fall. I said, I didn't even trust my own dad, because he just didn't seem to get the vision. You know what I'm saying? So he didn't, every time I explained what I wanted, he didn't seem to understand. So I took over the reins, and I worked and studied in my 3rd year. And I've been working and studying 1995 for 10 years until I qualified as a CA.
Wow.
Right? So I studied part-time with UNISA, and I did my 3-year degree. I studied part-time and did my honors degree with Natal part-time. And I wrote my board. I failed my board twice, the first part of the board. And then I wrote the 3rd time I passed. And I'm one of the few people to have said, when I left the venue, I said, I know I have passed the board, you know? And everyone's like, how can you say that? No one ever knows that. I said, I had a strategy, because I had realized that because I was studying part-time, I actually was cramming a lot. So I didn't get the principles, but I was passing. But the principles were not ingrained in me. So I'll make an example. When I was writing the first part of the board, someone asked the question, so what happens to FCTR? You know, like when you're doing the consolidations, and I'm like, what on earth is FCTR? Because you know what I'm saying? Because I never studied consolidations, because I just didn't like it. So I had to sit down and say, you know what, pick a board course and deal with it. So I did the UJ board course. Anton van Wyk was the lecturer, and he was amazing as a lecturer, right? And then that's when I actually just decided I'm going the UJ route, and I'm going to write exams. I'm going to do mock exams. I'm going to write all of those mock exams and make sure that the conditions that I'm writing under as I'm practicing are the same as the board exam. And then that's how I passed my and then I wrote my second part of the board, and I was pregnant. I had gotten married. I was pregnant, and I still passed that as well. 2 weeks after my baby was born, and a month after my dad.
2 weeks. Wow. Oh.
So I always say to people that life throws you certain. It's like a card game. You know, like when you play card games, life deals you certain cards, and unfortunately, it might not be advantageous cards. You will have to play the cards that life throws at you. You see what I'm saying? So you play those cards. So I always say to people, life has not thrown me too many advantageous cards. But what I do very well is I play my cards very well, you know, and therefore I actually am comfortable that I am successful as I describe success. So my success, how I describe success is not going to be the same way as always describe success. It's not going to be the same way as another person describes success. But I am comfortable that I'm a successful person at this point. As you're talking to me,
success is not just about money. Agreed. 100% behind.
It's not about money. Yes.
Now, also shifting post a little bit. You've worked in very senior positions at a Big Four audit firm. You've worked in a big senior positions in commerce and in cyber.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the differences in working in those different environments, because it's different. I mean, it's not the same. There's very different approaches to each one.
It's not the same always. And I always say to people, again, I'm going to go back to my analogy of a card game, right? The way I navigate life depends on the cards that were handed to me as I was born and I was nurtured and I was raised, right? I make no apologies for the cards that I got, but I can play them very well. So one of the things is that for me, as Zimkita Mabindla, I want to make sure that I have a diverse skill set. It might not be anything, it might not be something that someone else wants. So there are people who stay in audit firms for 25 years. It is working for them. I am coming from a different environment. So for me, if I had to stay in an audit firm for 25 years, I was always going to be asking if there's anything else that the apartheid government is hiding from me. You see what I'm saying? So,
I understand.
It was always going to be that. So I move around a lot to prove to myself I can actually work in this in any environment that you throw at me. I can realize my potential, because that is what the system had wanted for me, to be a ball of unrealized potential and unexplored gifts. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's very important that I diversify my skill. And it's important for me that I am comfortable that even internationally and globally, I am recognized as a CA and a competent CA. And that is what informs my decisions. So I always say to people, I don't work for money. I don't work for accolades. I don't work for performance bonuses. I work where I believe I will make the biggest impact, especially to young people of this country, including my daughter. So I mean, so if someone has a bigger house than mine, I'm okay with it, you know? But as long as I know that I touch people's lives and people will remember me, if I had to die today, people will remember me and smile and remember me for only good things. And that is my biggest reward.
What I'm taking from that, and I listen to a lot of people talking about, it sounds like you have to be self-aware, know what makes you happy and what you, I mean, just don't see what makes somebody else happy if money is good and then you chase money. Know what, if you like money, then chase it. But I mean, if know what you like and then chase that. I think that's something that if there was any advice that I'd give to any youngster, I think that's very important. Did we lose her, or is she still with us? Okay, you're still with us. Perfect.
Yes, I'm losing you a bit on my side, but it's fine. I'm losing you a little bit on my side.
Okay. maybe let me move on to the next question. So
Yes,
I read
yes,
your
I can hear you now.
okay, perfect. I read your article about your experience about your first audit client and how, I mean, people spoke in a different language, and luckily you had a
Yes.
senior in the corner. If anybody hasn't read the articles, please do. And I mean,
Yes.
I did articles a while ago, and you did articles even further. And
Fair
some of the
enough.
questions are so some of the questions are we're going to touch on them, but it reminded me of like when I was in articles, they always used to do these surveys, these anonymous
Yes.
surveys. But if
Yes.
you ask me which year I'm in, either what my race is or what my religion, either of them, then you'll know that that's me that wrote those answers. So
Yes.
those
Yes.
surveys were
Yes.
never anonymous. I mean,
Yeah.
whenever I
Yeah.
used to think about that. But I don't know if you want
Because
to
you're
talk a
probably
little
the
bit
only
about that.
one.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and you were back even further. So I don't even want to ask the struggles that you must have gone through. And if anybody's out there, go and look at those articles. If you compare that to now, I mean, it's chalk and cheese. Yes, we've still got a way to go, but we've come a decent bit of way since then.
Yes, and always, I always said, I mean, for me, the reason why I wrote the article though is when I realized. So I did my articles. So the year I'm talking about was 1998, right? And I was so surprised when I went into some of the working environments and found that these things are still happening. I remember when I spoke to the young people and I said, what year is this? And it's 2018. It's like years and years, 20 years. And we still have people who exclude. And the thing is, for me, I don't want to actually talk about the language itself. It is an excluding behavior. And excluding people from learning and developing in an institution that has promised people to learn and develop is unethical. You see, so when I talk about these things, it's not something that we can just brush off. You see what I'm saying? You are excluding people from learning and development, whereas you went to university and promised them that you're going to develop and give them learning opportunities. And that is what we need to talk about. It's no longer a matter of, oh no, we actually was an oversight. You know, we cannot have that. We need to have leadership that is very strict on these issues. We will not have these excluding behaviors happening in our organizations. And that is why I wrote that article.
I have more questions, but there's quite a few questions coming in the comments, so I want to give them some time. So we're gonna switch over a little bit to questions. We've got a very long question here from Dumisani. So let's see what Dumisani has to say. The audit profession remains largely untransformed. So it follows on what we just talked about a little bit. One of the reasons is that black trainees can't wait to sign off the articles. What can be done to retain black trainees and black managers within these firms so that we can speed up the process of transformation in the profession?
Okay, Dumisani, thank you so much for the question, and I love Dumisani's content. I follow his content. He writes amazing stuff. The first thing we need to talk about transformation in the profession, right? I want to remind young people that the big four firms are led by 3 black men and an Indian man, right? And when we look at we say that largely untransformed, we first have to look at that. 26 years ago, that picture would have been totally different. So we do need to tick and actually congratulate ourselves on the fact that the big four audit firms is Ignatius at KPMG. We've got Shelley now, and we had Dion at PwC. We have Ajahn Sita at EY, and we have Lwazi Bam at Deloitte. You know, the big four audit firms are run by black people mostly, and that is something that we need to celebrate. But I do realize that at the bottom, on the ground, there's still a lot of white people, and they still have their own ways of doing things. This is the reason why I write the content that I'm writing, is to say that young CAs, you can do something about this. Do not get comfortable when the system benefits you, right? I'm going to release an article tomorrow morning. I'm releasing an article to young CAs to say, and giving them the example of Enron, right? What happened at Enron to the people who are sponsoring that system? So we have people, yes, you are benefiting as a white person in South Africa, you're getting development and growth earlier than other people. You are benefiting as a person who is maybe a man because of the fact that the gender issues are working on your, for your benefit. But you can do things, you can train people the same way as that's what I did in my story. You can do things on the side to benefit people. And doing that, you will actually dilute the power of the people who are still holding on to these old systems, to these old processes that exclude other people. And that for me is very important. I'm writing to young CAs. I will speak to young CAs to say, you can do this. You can actually have the power to dilute the power of these guys.
We've got a question from Ayanda. How do you build your confidence throughout your career from being a trainee to where you are now?
Ayanda, thank you so much for the question. I believe, there is a saying, and it's a saying that resonates with me. The best investment you can make is in self-investment, is self-development, right? So from the time I knew, as I'm saying, that I keep on going back to the fact that I know the cards that life dealt me. So Bantu education meant that I couldn't do public speaking. I couldn't do, my English was not good enough. So, I actually, as young as 21, I paid for my own voice clinic, right? And it was expensive. It was something like 3,000 rands, but I financed and I paid for it. I've paid for my own education. I have paid for my own presentation skills courses, and I have made sure that I do present. I've taken opportunities to present. So I think for me, what I always advise young people is to say, you must make sure that you invest in your own self. You don't wait for the organizations to invest in you, because some of the times, informed by the processes that inform their thinking, you might be excluded. You need to write down the developmental areas. You need to listen to other people. If 5 people say that you are defensive, it is highly likely that you are. They're not being racist or sexist. Probably you are, right? So maybe explore that. If people say that you lack empathy, probably you are, and then you actually get courses. I've paid for my own personality assessment things, assessment tests, so that I know where my personality is lacking, and then try and actually work on those leadership skills. So I think
I like what you said there about it's important that don't take one person's opinion. If 5 people tell you yes, but one person is not necessarily the best gauge. So I agree fully on that one.
Yes.
And then we've got a question from Jane, who says, how did you figure out what path you wanted to take after articles? Because I'm currently done with articles and I'm as confused as I was in first year.
Jane, thank you so much. Jane, you're not alone. And the reason why is that we need to look at our system, because most of the guys straight from university, they get told that they have to do their articles. I don't think we're doing much work in a career guidance and career development once you guys are in articles. I have had instances where people, the first interview they will ever have is when they are applying for assistant manager, right? So I think for me, you need to write down what you think you're good at, what you're passionate about, what do you want your purpose to be, what do you want to be remembered for, and go for that. And the thing is, another thing that I think we're not doing well as CAs is to tell people that it is highly likely that in any job that you're doing, you're probably going to succeed, because we are trained to be thought leaders. We're not only trained to be auditors or CFOs, or yes, that is a starting point. But we are trained to be thought leaders. I write thought leadership. I've worked for SICA. I've been a CFO. And I have succeeded in all of these roles, right? And I have actually had to go and be honest with myself. Did you succeed here? I don't want people to give me their feedback because it's normally tainted by other things. I need to understand that I have succeeded and be happy that I've succeeded. So you need to write down what is it, what do you want to be remembered for? What is it that you want people to say when you're not here? And then go for that. And that's the only advice that I can give right now, given the time limit that I have.
And just to add on that, also, we talked about it earlier, but that self-awareness, understanding what you like and what you don't like. Because if you're not interested in something, you're never going to give your full heart to it. If you are interested in something, you are more likely to learn more about it, do things after hours, try and upskill yourself. I knew when I was in audit, I knew I did not want to be in audit after, because I hate going to a place where people, when you go to clients, people don't want you to be there. And we get this feeling at something, and I hated that feeling, and I just couldn't work in a place where people don't want me to come there every day. So I knew, okay, audit was not for me. I needed to find something else to do.
And always, I think that the thing is to be able to try and fail and try again. You see what I'm saying? Because I think as CAs, we are told that we need to be good at everything. It's just how the world works. We're no longer allowing young people to make mistakes anymore. We punish young people for mistakes. And I'm like, but this is a time to make all the mistakes that you can make. You know, I've had so many public mistakes and so many public failures, and it's made me a better person. So if you thought that being a CFO was going to work for you and you're like, it's not working, please walk away and try something else. But make sure though that you record what you learned out of the process, because you always learn something. And whatever you learn, you will use it somewhere else. And that I can guarantee you.
I'm slipping in one more question from Kosinati. Please, you want to know what's your take on the IRBA board being dissolved by the finance minister and the future of the IRBA in the profession?
Kosinati, a bit of a difficult question. I think for me, and I'm going to try and be very honest about this, when there was the appointment of the CEO board, CEO of at IRBA, there were a lot of questions around conflict of interest. So the whole issue around the IRBA CEO is a question of whether she would be conflicted, having been the audit committee chair and governance chair of Tongaat during the time Tongaat was experiencing issues. Now, I will not have an opinion on whether it's a conflict or not. You can use your own discernment, right? That is the biggest issue. So how the minister thought that then they must dissolve the board, I think it's because the board itself was conflicted on whether this is a conflict of interest or not. So we need to be very specific on the facts, right? So then the minister took the decision. Our profession has been on having a negative spotlight, right? And I say to young people, I think we need to actually go back and say what happened. And I think for me, and this is my personal opinion, I think we forgot who we are, right? As CAs, as auditors, we just forgot who we are. When I was a CFO and when I was going the CFO route and trying to run finance functions, I would go to conferences where they were telling us that you're no longer going to be this gray CA sitting in the corner. And I always say, maybe in trying so hard to be who these people said we should be, we forgot who we are. We started adopting principles that were not in line with good governance and corporate governance, because we are the custodians of corporate governance. We are the custodians of good financial governance. And we tried so hard to be cool and to be with the people, and it did not work for us. So if you ask me about the future of the profession, of the CA profession and of the audit profession, I always say, look at the conversations that we're having. Look at how now we are reminding young people about the basic principles that we need to adhere to, of audit quality, of independence, of public interest, right? We've got a list of, we've gone back now to the foundations of what makes us the custodians of good corporate governance, the custodians of good financial governance. So you ask me about the profession, I will tell you I am positive, I am hopeful, I am definitely optimistic. We are going to go back to being number one in the world.
There's still quite a few questions, and I still have quite a few questions, but we're running out of time. So if anybody wants Zimkita to join us again, please let me know in the comments. Zimkita, any last few words, anything that you want to talk about that we didn't discuss? And also, importantly, your articles, where can people read it?
Okay, so I publish on LinkedIn, and I publish solely on LinkedIn. Soon I will move on to my own platform as ZPMCASA, which is the Z word. I'm gonna move there. But what I want to say to young people, guys, young people, young CAs, I am truly proud of you. I was at EY for 2 years after joining SAICA. Carried us through at this time. You guys have been working hard, you've been working long hours. You have managed to silence the noise and do your work. So every time you see the JSE is actually stable because of your work. And I always say to people, if that is not ethics, I don't know what is. If that is not integrity, I don't know what is. And I want you guys to know, silence the noise, continue working, and your work is not going unnoticed. And forget about the CAs are useless. Those are people who don't know us, right? They don't know us. They don't know what we stand for. And you guys have shown us that you are the future of this profession. And I'm truly, truly mighty proud of you.
Just a reminder to everyone that the show will be available on YouTube and podcast. If you're watching the recording on YouTube or the podcast and you feel that this video has added value to you, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Zimkita, thank you so much for bringing your energy and for adding so much value to our audience. we must try and get you on again.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you guys for listening.
Thank you. I'll be sending out information about the new episode towards the end of the week or at the beginning of the next week. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.